Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Hawk Talk post-game reaction show. After the Seahawks won pretty convincingly against the Cardinals, 27-10. Game ends on a nice sack by Ziggy Ansah, the first of his Seahawks career. Joined by Mr. Jeff Simmons, at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. How you doing, dude?
I'm good. That was a little better than last week.
Yes. It was better than honestly any of the weeks so far, and
yeah, probably.
You know, we'll talk about all of it, but it was nice to see them kind of play the way that I think you and I expected them to play this year, and this is a game that we expected them to be able to be capable of, and I think every game they played, other than the first game of the season, should have looked like this, and they've just gotten in their own way. So let's. I know you've got a time limit here, so let's get you on the board first with initial reactions, thoughts, takeaways. What are your first thoughts about this game?
First thought, Chris Carson was kind of dispelled some of the talk about benching him, and I thought that talk was a little bit silly, to be honest. And a lot of people want Penny to start. I know Evan did in our show; he tweeted it last night. I didn't think that was going to solve the issue. I think the best way to go is just to keep running him out there. And he looked like the player we saw last year. He was one of the best players on the field today. I know Arizona's not a very good team, but he was a dominant player. I thought Russell in the first half, when they kind of had their foot on the gas, I thought Russell was fantastic today. And we saw a little more from guys like Clowney, and Ansah had a sack at the end. The defense was pretty good for the most part, but some issues there. But yeah, I thought Carson really, really stood out today. I thought he was a dominant player. That was the guy we saw last year, which was a top 5 running back in the NFL.
I think it's where you have to start, right? Carson ends with 104 yards, 4.7 yards a carry, running the ball. And then he also had 4 catches for 41 yards. So almost 150 total yards of offense. And he ran tough. The worry wart in me, it would be that, he had, 26 touches today, and he's got to play the Rams in 4 days. So yeah, that's a little bit concerning for me, and it's only a little bit concerning, and that's what they're paid to do, and everyone's going to be on the same schedule. But he had a punishing day. I mean, he was destroying Cardinal players on multiple occasions, and there were a number of situations where he took what would have been a loss and turned it into a gain, or what would have been a short gain and turned it into a first down. So, I mean, he was really, really good today. And I think you can't just give it to him, though. There was plays he made, but the offensive line, there were a number of plays where Upati was blocking down on players and creating gaps that we just haven't seen that much in the first 3 games of the season.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. I think the 2 guards played really, really well today. I saw some kind of slowish plays by Dwayne Brand at the end, but yeah, I thought Upati was really, really good. There were more holes there, especially in the run game, than there's been all year. And I think the coolest part was we barely heard Chandler Jones's name, and he's a guy who's destroyed the Seahawks in the past meetings there. And I didn't remember him making a splash play. I know Suggs made a few and some other guys, but I think that's a big step forward for a group that's been pretty bad this year.
Yeah, it's a great point. That, I mean, I was talking about the run blocking. You started talking about the pass protection. The Cardinals end with 4 sacks and 5 QB hits in the afternoon, and that already is not the worst day. We've seen plenty of six sacks days for Russell Wilson in these types of situations. But you also think about one of those sacks was when Russell thought he saw a seam and just ran up the middle. There was a perfect pocket there, and he just decided he thought he was going to run for it and didn't see a player coming down. So really 3 sacks that you give up to the offensive line. That's a fine day. And 5 QB hits, I thought he had nice time to throw. And, for the first half, he was finding guys. There's a lot of plays. And then it just kind of ground to a halt for a little while.
Yeah, it's odd. Arizona's just an odd team. They're not very talented. They run a kind of a a very odd offense. It's hard to know like what to make from that game because they're a bad team.
Well, it's. I was thinking about that as the clock was winding down, and you see the Seahawks dominate the Cardinals 27-10, and it should have been worse, right? Like,
Yeah.
This was a game that could have been over by halftime. They could have easily been up 24-7, but or even more. Then I think about the Cardinals, and they tied the Lions, who were undefeated before today, and took the Chiefs all the way to the end. They lost by 6 points to the Ravens in Baltimore. And then they got hosed by the Panthers last week. So I didn't see a team that looked very good, but they certainly have given some good teams a run for their money. So, it's easy for us to sit here and say, hey, this team's so bad. That's why the Seahawks won. But guess what? The Saints weren't that good, and the Steelers certainly were not that good, and the Bengals weren't that good. And those were all games that didn't go exactly the way we wanted to. So at some point, you do have to give the Seahawks credit for, playing more to their level and not necessarily to their opponents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was kind of the game that we wanted to see when we talked on the show this week. We wanted to see a game that was, for the most part, comfortable. I didn't love how they approached the third quarter. I think that would be my biggest criticism. I saw you tweet that. I thought that was pretty lame, to be honest. I thought they were just taking their foot off the gas, and it got a little hairy for a second, but once they needed to, they had that 8-minute drive and just slammed the ball down their face. And I think the reason Arizona's been in games is I think their quarterbacks are pretty fun, exciting, player. Like Kyler made a lot of plays today that most guys in the league couldn't make. Like the Seahawks could have had a lot better of a defensive day if they had a non-mobile quarterback that wasn't just very, very hard to tackle in space. He's so quick and he's so elusive, and he's a really good player. They don't have a lot to work with him, but I think that's the biggest reason more than anything. They're able to stay in games, and most of the plays they made today were just stuff that he kind of was freestyling, and they could have had a lot more sacks. They could have had tackles for loss. I know Akeem King had a chance at one late in the game, and he's a good player, but man, that was a fun game overall. Just the Seahawks were really sound today, and that was a nice step forward.
Yeah, it's I admit I'm a little bit distracted by what's going on with the Rams game, and I don't know how much you followed what's going on there.
I followed a lot of it. I watched most of the game on my computer.
So we'll get back to the Seahawks game in a second, but the Bucs are currently up 45-34. They've got the ball. Game's certainly not over with 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. What's been going on in that game?
Beginning of it, Jared Goff was really, really sloppy. He threw 2 picks early on. One just completely flipped the field. The Rams just got burned before I came down here. Once they kind of made it close, Mike Evans has similar Marcus Peters. Remember David Moore burned him a couple times last year and Lockett burned him? It looked like one of those plays where Peters just completely whiffed on the route. And really, other than they've been playing in comeback mode the whole game, and Goff just hasn't looked sharp. I think that's what made them so good last year is just Goff and McVay seem to be in so command. And their offensive line, one of the things we talked about before the year, is a lot different than it was last year. Their whole interior of their offensive line has changed, and the tackles are the same. And Whitworth is kind of going through what Dwayne Brown is. They look a step off from last year. So they're not operating at this efficient, dominant offense. The first 3 games, their offense was pretty bad. They won mostly on defense, and getting guys like Fowler and Clay Matthews have really helped their pass rush kind of rejuvenate. But offensively, they've just been kind of off the whole year. And Goff's a guy we both have questioned a lot, and he looked really, really bad at the start of the game. And now they're just kind of playing catch up, and they're passing pretty much the whole game at this point. And it's a lot easier to put up points when they do that against a bad defense, but they haven't looked good.
I think they just got a pick 6. That's 45-40 now.
Oh God, yeah, they did.
Son of a gun, it's gonna be one of those.
Marcus Peters.
Yeah.
Well, Jameis is good at that.
Yeah. I just don't want to think about it. They're gonna
no.
It's gonna be super.
How much time's left?
It's plenty of time. There's 8 minutes left.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a long time to go. Let's get back to the Seahawks game. So, another guy that I thought had a really nice game today is Will Dissly.
Agreed.
The Cardinals have had trouble. You mentioned it on our show earlier this week that Cardinals had trouble defending tight ends, and sure enough, Disley had a touchdown, had 7 catches on the day, 57 yards. So not like a huge yardage day, but 7 catches and 8 targets, and certainly affected the game.
Yeah, he looked really, really good in the first half. That play design they had for the touchdown was really, really sharp. That was a great throw by Russell, but he just looks like every time he plays a game, like he got 5 touchdowns in 4 games or 4 touchdowns in 5 games. He just looks like a player out there. And he got that holding penalty at the end. I was kind of just a mistake, but for the most part, he looks like a great passing option. If they're going to go to that quick game, he's a perfect fit for that role. And then they can still use Lockett in the slot, Lockett outside. I think he really gives a dimension to this offense that they haven't had. He's just like, we spent all that time talking about Jimmy Graham in those years. He's such a better fit for the offense they want to run. And he looks like just a completely different player than they thought, than the kind of just pure blocker they talked about it when they were drafting.
Yeah, he is looking on track to be a really, really big part of this team for years to come. And also, just like you said, a Seahawks player. He's a Seahawks tight end. He fits perfectly into this team. And, Luke Wilson today back. And Jeff, I still don't get it. The Steelers gave up a 5th-round pick, which probably is going to be a high 5th-round pick, for what I believe is an inferior player to the player the Seahawks just signed off the street. So I don't know why, but I'm certainly happy that it's in our favor because Wilson had a couple nice plays today.
Yeah, he made more plays today than Nick Vanette's made all year and probably most of last year. And that catch he made on that throw from Russell was ridiculous. And he's a better blocker, I think, than Vanette is. He brings more energy when he's playing. And I think he's just a good guy to have in the building. And yeah, I'll never understand why the Steelers, in a pretty much a lost season, gave up a pick for a backup tight end that when better ones were available on the street. That to me is insane. But whatever John Schneider did there, similar to what he did to Bill O'Brien in Houston, that's an unbelievable move.
It is. I mean, it is. We're going to see that next year, that 5th-round pick, and Schneider's made great use of those in the past. So that was nice to see. A couple other players I'm going to call out. Interesting to see. I mean, obviously, Jadeveon Clowney gets the pick 6 today. That was a big deal. That was important, and good to see him have a chance to do it. His first career interception, he had one in the playoffs, but his 3rd touchdown of his career. I also thought Rasheem Green flashed a little today. Nice sack. Yeah. Also, some nice pressure. I thought it was nice. Michael Kendricks with a couple sacks today and looked good rushing the passer. He still is missing tackles.
Yes.
Which I think it could be becoming an increasing question. And I thought Shaquille Griffin again today played well. Any of those guys you have thoughts on?
Yeah, I thought Shaq was great today. I thought he just looks like he's playing with so much more confidence. I don't know if it's like the Richard Sherman haircut or something, but the fact that guys are trying to hold him on plays, I think you tweeted that. I think that's a big step forward. He's really taken a step forward and looks a lot closer to the guy we saw as a rookie and with added confidence. I thought that penalty on him the penalty on the play where he broke up the pass was complete garbage. Same with the Tedrick one. But I thought Rasheem Green is a really good call. That sack he made was a really hard play to make with Kyler running the other way with space. That's a really athletic play. And Kendricks is a guy he's still struggling to tackle in space, which is odd because that's what he was so good at when you watched him play last year and in the preseason. He looked kind of dominant in that area where he was sniffing out plays and making plays in the backfield. The sacks were great today. The pressure was good, but just David Johnson in the open field and Kyler in the open field was similar to Kamara and similar to some of that Steelers game where he's not wrapping up and he's not securing guys. So he has been struggling as a tackler, which makes you wonder maybe they do go more nickel going forward. But he was an up and down player. But yeah, I think Shaq was a really good call out. I think he's been a really good. I totally agreed, by the way, for the record, what you were saying on Trey Flowers today. He was completely burned on that one play.
I don't know what people are thinking that they said that was good coverage. I mean, the guy, if that's good coverage, then there's a lot of good cornerbacks sitting on the streets because that should be a touchdown every time. So I'm going to ask you one more question, Jeff, and then I know you got to run, and I'll keep it up, talk to some folks and take some questions. How do you feel coming out of this game heading into the Rams game this week?
much more confident. I thought that was a team that we kind of envisioned the day we got Clowney, and they haven't been the dominant front seven that we kind of envisioned yet. I know maybe that will require Jaron Reed or some time for Ansah to warm up, but I feel like that's the formula. If you get rid of that crap third quarter, that the Seahawks can win with. I think the offensive line is a big part of how they need to win going forward. I think they need to control the game, and I love what they're doing with the quick game. I think Russell's continued to look really, really good. He looked a little jumpy at times today, but overall he's been really, really good. If you can get Chris Carson going, and with Will Dissly and Lockett, and I'd like to see DK get the ball a little more. His targets have kind of gone down the last 2 weeks, and I don't really understand why. They threw one into the red zone to him today, a couple overthrows to him, but I think they can get him going with the short pass they gave to him on that first and long. I think I'd like to see him get going. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good elements to this team, and if they win last week, they're 4-0, and they don't fall over themselves. But Thursday's going to be a great test. It's a short week. It's the Rams, who they've always played close, even when they've been, even last year where they were clearly talent inferior to them. I think that's a real measuring stick for this team because they usually do play up to competition. And I think we'll learn a lot about this team based on how they handle this next game.
Yeah, all good points. And Jeff, thank you for jumping on. We'll let you go.
Thank you.
A great New Year's tonight. So make sure you give Jeff a follow at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. So if you're wondering where Evan is likely inebriated at the Cardinals game. And judging by Alex's tweets of him before the Cardinals game, then that's just my guess. But he won't be able to join today. So I'm going to spend a few more minutes going over some thoughts I had. I'll take some questions if there are in chat, and then we'll wrap up there. But a couple things of note, and I'll obviously keep an eye on the big Rams score as we go. Right now, it's 1st and 10 for Tampa Bay at the Rams 30-yard line. The other news coming out of that game is Marcus Peters, who just had a pick six to pull them within 45-40, just left with possible concussion. So that could be a big thing come Thursday night, depending on how serious of an issue that is for Marcus Peters. Now the Bucks got a huge play, and it is now 1st and goal at the Rams 6-yard line. This is 4.5 minutes to go. This could be the moment where they really seal the deal, which would be huge shock. I don't think anybody would have expected Tampa Bay to win in this game or even be in this game. And to the point where when they were up, I think like 28-7, or they had I know they were up 21-0. I fully expected the Rams to come back and annoyingly win the game. So it still could happen. It's now 2nd goal at the Rams 7 after a loss of 1 on this last play, but I'll keep an eye on that and keep you guys up to speed. Interestingly, looking at this game, if I'm going to nitpick a little bit, I would say, one, we already talked about the offense, I think taking some time off in terms of the third quarter mainly, but I'd also say that really they missed some red zone opportunities. This is a team that was number 1 in the NFL in red zone scoring coming in today. They were 8 for 9. And one of the things that people don't really talk about with Brian Schottenheimer, because they're so busy criticizing so many things about him, is he's been pretty damn good in the red zone. The Seahawks were one of the top red zone team last year, and they actually trailed off towards the end, but were really good. So a little surprising there. It turns out the Seahawks go 2 for 4 today from the red zone. It's not the worst, but certainly not their normal clip. Did give Jason Myers a chance to take a couple field goals to get him off the bench, which is nice to see. But I do feel like the offense did not, at the end of the first half, there's a chance there for, I think Russell missed David Moore for what should have been a pretty easy touchdown. He just threw it away without a lot of pressure. I wasn't sure exactly. There might have been something going on that I did not see, but it seemed like an odd choice and a quick surrender by Russell on that play. And, there are a couple other things there, but they didn't score there. And I think they just kept the Cardinals in the game. The other side, I think the defense played a pretty good game. I think they give up 321 yards, 10 points. And if I go really quickly, let me check out the Cardinals for the season. They had scored 27 in the first game. They scored 17 in the second game. And they scored 20 in the third game. So the Seahawks held the Cardinals to their lowest scoring output at home in a game that you have to know that they were very eager to get their first win against a team that was looking vulnerable, had not played any big games where they had run away from teams. They had not looked intimidating. The Seahawks lost a game to Teddy Bridgewater last week. So I think the Cardinals at home had to feel confident that they were going to be able to have a decent game. And that opening drive they had was not bad. They went down, couple missed field goals, could have changed this game, could have made it definitely different in terms of how both teams approached it. But the Seahawks took advantage of that. And on third down today, the Cardinals ended up being 3 for 9, which is, I think, important number. Looking here at the Rams Tampa Bay game, if you're wondering what my eyes are darting to, it's 3rd and goal at the Rams 10-yard line. So 2.5 minutes to go. You certainly want to see the Bucs at least get a field goal, which would put it to an 8-point game, meaning the Rams would have to get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Interestingly, the Rams went for 2 on their pick 6 and didn't get it. If they had gotten it, then a field goal here would make it a 7-point game instead of what could now be an 8-point game. Obviously, I'd love to see a touchdown, but a field goal is going to be important here. So looks like the Bucs ended up going for the field goal. It is now 48-40. So the Rams will have 2.5 minutes to go, down by 8 points, needing a touchdown and 2 points, a 2-point conversion. We'll see how that goes. Other pieces in this game. So I thought the defense played reasonably well. It wasn't great to see some of the rushing yardage given up here. So one of the things that is worth noting about, I'm going to pull it up here, make sure I've got the right numbers here, but this Cardinals team has not been great running the ball this year. And I'm going to tell you in a second just how bad they've been. But Arizona ended up over 100 yards on the day. Rushing for the year, they were averaging 84 yards rushing a game, which was 26th in the NFL. They were last in the NFL in terms of percentage of plays that they were running the ball. So they switched things up today. They definitely ran the ball more. There's some 2-back sets they haven't shown a lot of. And they were 14th in the NFL in yards per carry at 4.5 yards per carry. Today, they walk away with 115 yards and 5 yards a carry. So a little bit above their average. You certainly don't want to give up 5 yards a carry to a team. And it was hard to watch. A lot of it was coming up the middle. And, you'd like to see Poona Ford and Al Woods kind of block that up. You'd like to see the linebackers take care of it. And didn't exactly go the way you'd want there. So that a little bit of a ding. And David Johnson he gets 40 yards on 11 carries for 3.6 yards. 27 of those yards were Kyler Murray scrambles. So you don't really count that as a run defense. But David Johnson also had 8 catches for 99 yards. So he was a big factor in the game. Other guys that I think are worth calling out, I think LJ Collier, I don't think he had a great game, but he had a great play. And that's somewhere to start, right? This is your first round pick. His first snaps I saw against Pittsburgh, he was not good. He was being overwhelmed. He was not fast. He was not strong. He was just taken out of the game. He looked like a guy. And what I look for when you've got a first round pick is a flash. Show me some speed. Show me a get off. Show me a move that looks like it could be turned into something more meaningful. Make a play, make an impact, do something to show that you've got some potential to grow. I don't need him to be a dominant player from the outset, and especially with all the time he missed. But it was really nice today. He saw on a 2nd and 18, I think the Cardinals ran a draw, and he came off his block and took down the ball carrier right at the line of scrimmage and made what was a 2nd and 18, a 3rd and 17. Usually the Seahawks give up 6, 7, 8 yards on that play. It was great to see him make that. Let's see him build off of it. It doesn't mean he was a dominant player today, but I think it was nice to see. Good to see Ziggy Ansah get the sack at the end of the game. I still haven't seen the rust completely come off there. He was not a huge factor. I don't think we were seeing a lot of Jadeveon Clowney either. The Seahawks only end with 5 QB hits, and you want to see more. So pass rush, not exactly where you want to see it. It was okay. It was not great today. And then, I'd also call out DK Metcalf. Jeff started bringing it up. It was not a great day for him. 1 catch and 4 targets. He had some tough targets for sure, but I think the Seahawks are not involving him as much as it looked like they were early in the season. And the 1 catch he had, it was a simple wide receiver like swing pass where they just threw it quickly out to him, and let him just bull a cornerback, and got 6 yards. It wasn't the biggest play of the game, but I'd love to see them do more of that. Put DK in a position where he can use his size and use his speed up against a corner in space. And if he gets 5 yards, great. I don't know why as an offense you were comfortable throwing screen passes to Doug Baldwin or, Tyler Lockett in these little shifty plays, but you're not willing to give it to the 220-pound guy that's the fastest guy at that size to ever enter the NFL. Like, he's already shown the ability to break tackles and to get up to top speed quickly. I do feel like that's an easy way to get him more involved, and would like to see a little bit more of that. On the flip side, Jerron Brown, 3 catches for 50 yards in 3 targets, his biggest game really of the season. And he had a 32-yard catch and run, a lot of yards after catch. That was great to see. So I think some nice things there. I'm going to go ahead and turn it to some questions here. It's for people that are curious. It is the Rams have the ball at midfield, 50-yard line, first down with 2 minutes to go. They're at the 2-minute warning. So let's let's take some questions in the chat. Anyone that's got some questions, I'm happy to talk about those or any topics that you'd like to hear a little bit more about. So I'll keep an eye on the chat as we're waiting for that. But I thought Russell played a nice game today. I think, he wasn't perfect, but I thought he was, once again, this is another game where he exits with a huge passer rating, 114. I think he's been over 110 in every game. I'll have to double check that from last week, but I think so. 240 yards passing, not huge, but really solid. A touchdown, still hasn't thrown an interception. That's really what you want to see. And 1 touchdown. So it wasn't as many passing touchdowns as we're used to from him. But a nice, solid game. Question from Sullivan here. Could you see Adrian Colbert as someone who could start some point later this season? I think so. I do. I think, and I have not seen him. I'm saying that based off of how the Seahawks coaches have talked about him. Pete Carroll is very excited to get him. This is a guy who has 4.3 speed, and is over 210 pounds, 215 pounds. He's a physical dude and has shown in the NFL the ability to cover a lot of ground. So they don't have anyone like that. Tedrick is not that. Bradley is not that. So I think that's an interesting, turn of events, to pull him onto the practice squad after the 49ers had an injury settlement and other teams then wanting to sign him off the practice squad. So they pull him onto the 53. He could be 3, 4, 5 weeks away from potentially getting into a game. Interesting to note, Marquise Blair was a healthy scratch today. He's been a big special teams player, so I'm curious why he was out. But not a great sign. You'd like to see him in the game and starting to get closer to getting more snaps. We saw them split between Tedrick and Leno Hill today. I don't think either one of them looked particularly good. Tedrick Thompson did nothing to change my mind about who he is. It's still not a starter, but he is starting for us. So that's a challenge. I got a question here from Camden McLaurin asking, how did Michael Dixon look? Not great. I mean, to be honest, it's not the Michael Dixon we saw last year. He had 1 punt that got caught at the 5-yard line. That was a good punt. It could have been downed if that wasn't caught. So give him credit for that. That's a big one. That's up to his caliber. He had another one where he kicked long and went out of bounds inside the 20. So 3 of his 4 punts were inside the 20. That's good. This is a guy that's been an all-pro level punter in his first year and very consistently hitting the ball 50-plus yards and getting, 4.5-second hang time and not getting any return. So we're just not seeing as much of that. And, there was a play earlier that just also did not, a kick today that was not up to his standards. And look, I'm not I'm not trying to be unreasonable, but he's a punter and he should be able to kick the ball very consistently. Unless he's got someone giving him bad snaps or he's got pressure in his face, I expect to see him punt the ball consistently. And he just hasn't done it to the point in the season. So let's see. Michael Hendrickson asks, how do they simplify the prep for a short week? That's a great question. That's the question of the day. So now you got this win. You feel great. Looking excited at 3-1. You know, looks like the Bucs just got a really stupid penalty that's going to keep the drive alive for the Rams. As you know, you were hoping to see the Rams get out of the game there, but now 1st and 10 at the Bucs 36-yard line with 1 minute and 18 seconds to go. So how do they prep for the short week? Well, first of all, you know, they'll take tomorrow off as they normally do, but they will have the game plan. They've already been game planning for next week during this week. So that's part of how they get ready is they have a lot of that. They have a lot of that. Oh, wait a second. Sorry, something happening here. Yeah, so it looks like the Rams actually had jumped off sides and the refs didn't see it. So the Rams got very lucky on that play. They called the Bucs player for jumping off sides, and it really was the Rams who drew him off sides. Offensive pass interference in the Rams. They're back to the 46. They're on to the 46-yard line of the Bucs. 1st and 20 with 1:17 to go. So other things we're going to see is, I mean, they know the Rams. This isn't a new team, so I don't expect it's going to be as hard. They know how they want to approach. They've been planning for the first game against the Rams the entire offseason. Last time they played the Rams, Pete Carroll very clearly said, I cannot wait to play them again. I think he's starting to learn a little bit about how Sean McVay's offense works and has some ideas of how to defend it. This defense is not amazing. The Seahawks defense is not amazing. So the Rams are going to score points. They're good. They're going to move it. Jared Goff hasn't been great. He's not a great player. And McVay puts him in great situations. And Todd Gurley has not been great yet this year. The Rams offense has not been great yet this year. They got a lot of points right now. But what just happened? And Ndamukong Suh just did something. Hopefully it was good. Wow, sorry guys. I just see people talking about the Ndamukong Suh revenge game, and I want to know what went on. So, oh my God, Ndamukong Suh fumble return for a touchdown. The game is over. It is 54-40. The Bucs are up on the Rams. We are going to have 2 3-1 football teams facing off against each other on Thursday Night Football. And if you're worried about the Seahawks after this game, this was a relatively easy game. You didn't have that much physical play other than Chris Carson. And then you've got the Rams who had to give everything they could to get back into a game that they were way out of, get almost into it, and then lose it, you know, in this fashion. They've been putting a lot of energy into this game. They've been giving everything they can. They got to turn around and go on the road to Seattle and win that game in just a few days. So I think that's the bigger question is how they're going to prepare. I think the Seahawks are appreciably different than they were last year in a number of places. On defense, they're different. Personnel-wise, I think on offense, they're different. They passed the ball a bunch today, you know, all the way through. So, yeah, this is it's going to be a really interesting game. And, man, how nice is it to see the Rams lose? I'll never get old. Wampa Gaming asks, do you think Rashad Penny could have a good game next week? I do. And, you know, interesting with Penny out, instead of splitting carries with Procise the way that they've kind of been splitting carries with Penny, Chris Carson got almost all the carries. Procise did get a couple, and he got a touchdown. That was a great carry. I don't know if Chris Carson scores on that play, to be honest. I don't know if Penny scores on that play. Procise was the right back at the right time, put his foot in, and had the acceleration to get through that gap and scored. That was great to see. So, yeah, I think Penny's was held out today almost certainly with an eye on Thursday. I think another guy to watch is Ziggy Ansah. he was, questionable for this game. They've been babying him and his injury a little bit. Is he going to be questionable going into a short week? That's one to watch. But otherwise, the Seahawks look like they're in pretty good shape. And now you've got a Seahawks team that's 3-1. They've got the Rams coming to town. I think if you talked at the beginning of the year, home against Cincinnati, at Pittsburgh, home against the Saints, at Arizona, everybody would have been happy with like 3-1. I think a lot of people would have been happy with 2-2. There was concern about those, at least the Pittsburgh and the Saints game, and how that would go. Certainly the Saints game didn't work out for different reasons, but 3-1 is a strong way to start. And you have a chance to go 4-1 and win a game in the division and put the Rams below you in the standings. It's a huge, huge moment. And then, not to look too far ahead, but just to kind of talk through it, regardless of how this game goes, then you've got the Browns, and then you've got Jaron Reed coming back. So, we were wondering how this first 6 games of the season, it's a rough schedule, some really tough opponents, how that was going to play. Well, the opponents haven't been quite as tough as we originally thought. And the Seahawks have done pretty well. I think they've played pretty well. They've made a lot of stupid mistakes, but if you look at the quality of the team that they've been, they look better than the scores have been. So, again, you just want to see them pick up steam. And this game against the Rams this week is huge. So I'm going to take one more question, and then I'm going to have to wrap it up. Let's see. All right. Where did it go? I know I saw a question on here. I know there's dead air for you guys. Someone talked about the first place 49ers. Any of you that listen to the offseason and even the late of last year on this talk show, this podcast, I've been pretty consistent that I thought the 49ers were going to be good this year. And I was getting a lot of crap from the guys in here about it, but I think the 49ers are legit. I don't think they're undefeated legit, but I think they've got a really good defense. I think they've got a good enough offense, and they've got a fantastic offensive coach. So when you got a really good defense and you've got a fantastic offensive coach, you got a chance. So Alana has a question. Why doesn't Russ keep it on 3rd and 1s or give it to Fant? We'll make that the last question. I think that there are some more chances for Russell to do that, specifically early in the game. Really, he's gotten a little bit predictable in that he does not keep the ball for the first 3 quarters of the game, or at least until the game's in question, and then he'll start bringing it out. I think to the point where if it's 4th quarter and they need a play, I'm worried he's going to take a big hit because he's going to assume someone's not going to play him, and everyone's going to know, oh, he's going to keep it now. I would like him to be a little less predictable there and see him keep it earlier in the game, not a bunch, once, twice, whatever. And if there's something there, slide down and take a loss. I don't need him to take hits, but just the threat of him keeping it is what's going to keep that linebacker or that end off of Chris Carson or off of Rashad Penny. So you want to see a little bit more of that. Certainly they're not going to give it to Fant. It would be fun to see him catch the ball. We'll see what happens this week. But with that, just thank you guys for joining. If you haven't already, join over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. Subscribe here on YouTube. We're well over 3,000 subscribers now, which is great. We're over 100 patrons, which is fantastic. We take patron questions for the podcast every week. Leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, subscribe on Spotify, all those great things. Leave comments and just share the pod with other people. We really appreciate it. Take care, and congratulations, everybody. Successful Sundays. The Seahawks finished the first quarter of the season 3-1. Let's get 3 more quarters like that, and I think we'll all be happy. Take care.